from President Talabani, Prime Minister Maliki, and other leaders, who I think we've handed out, or they're at the tables out front. It is a misconception that the Iraqis do not support this proposal. They do not support partitioning. When it was defined as partitioning, they immediately responded after each of us contacted those leaders, in many cases personally and or through written communications. The entire mood changed. Speaking just for myself and not for Sam, I believe we need, and I have long proposed, a comprehensive strategy to end the war responsibly. In addition to this political settlement, I believe we should bring our troops home now by transitioning their mission to a much more limited and achievable task, like fighting Al-Qaeda and training the Iraqis. We should make a commitment as well to protect our troops and the readiness of our military with the right amount of home leave before we send people back, and by providing our troops in theater with every single solitary bit of protection is within our capacity to provide, such as mine-resistant vehicles. 73% of all the injuries and all the deaths are caused by roadside bombs and EFPs, those things you see on television that they use, essentially a big PCV pipe and this copper projectile that gets blown through and can penetrate the side of our vehicle. We have the ability, and we're now building these vehicles to replace the vehicles our troops are riding in, and we know it will increase their life expectancy from 60 to 80% if they're in those vehicles. And we should do everything we can to make sure that we leave something stable behind, so that our interests in the region are not endangered for a generation. I believe that's what our amendment does. In closing, I want to thank my partner in this effort, Sam Brownback. We are proof, in my view, that changing the direction of Iraqi policy does not need to be a partisan issue. To those who disagree with the solution we put forward, but acknowledge the need for a political solution in Iraq, my question is very simple. What's your alternative? Thank you very much, and I'd like to yield to my friend, Senator Brownback.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure to join you. I like these little short three-letter names, Joe, Sam. I think they sound very presidential to be able to have those. Beautiful day here in Iowa, and I can't think of a better place to do something like this than in Des Moines, and to talk about one of the key issues of our day, to do so on a bipartisan basis, and to show the country that the government can work, and that we can work together, and that we can work together on tough topics, and that we can get them done. As one of the things that I've been seeing as much as anything in this presidential cycle, and I heard it yesterday on a call-in show I was doing, is a lady just saying, you know, I've never been so hopeless as I am right now. It just doesn't seem like we can come together on anything. It seems like we're fighting and bickering on everything. And I thought that she hit a chord with what I heard from a number of people, that we just don't seem to come together on anything. And I told her then, well, stay tuned. Tomorrow, Joe Biden and I are going to talk about a big topic, and we're going to come together on it. Now, I said, you may want to check and make sure the sun comes up the next day and see if the world doesn't fall apart, or what the case might be. But we can do this. I'm delighted to join with Joe on this. He's a very serious individual. Is a gentleman, one of the lead foreign policy people, certainly in the Congress and of our times. Has been on Foreign Relations Committee for many years, has done a lot of great work, and knows the world well. What I call this is a political surge. We've had a military surge. There have been questions about the military surge. I think the military surge has proved some effectiveness. But all the military can give you is space for the political to work. And so now we need a political surge. And that's not my term. That's Thomas Friedman's term, that we need a political surge. That's what this represents, is a political surge forward. I'd like to see us push for the factions to come together. I'm urging the administration to send somebody like James Baker, somebody else of stature, to go over and to push the parties to move forward with the federalism approach, similar to what we did in the Dayton Accords and in Bosnia. we're going to make the recent military progress count. We have to have political progress. The time has come for a new kind of surge. Not only do I think we can agree that we need a political surge in Iraq, I believe that we can come together on a political solution for Iraq. And that's what we're talking about with this. And we can sum up this policy in one term. And that term's a term very familiar to Americans, and it's the term federalism, where you devolve power and authority out to the states and out to the regions. We're familiar with the benefits of federalism. Federalism means moving that power and authority out to the regions. It's something that can work in Iraq, and I think it particularly works in Iraq, recognizing the history of that region and the history of that country. To the media that's here, and I think we also have some of these at the tables, one of the most persuasive documents I've shown my colleagues to get them on board with this proposal were a series of maps. And they were maps from 1914 in the region then referred to as Mesopotamia, in the region governed by, dominated by the Ottomans. I hold one of them up to you right now, and that you can see the outline of today's Iraq in it. And you can see under the Ottoman dictatorship in that region, you had a north, they called them vilayets, we would call them states, Kurdish state. They had a center Sunni state, and they had a southern Shia state, or vilayet. And they broke it up into three regions, recognizing the demographic realities of that day. It's interesting to me that while you could look at it differently today, this is the demographic reality. Some people are saying, well, yes, but there's a lot of mixture and mixing that's taking place over those years. That is true between Sunni and Shia. And yet now you are seeing, with the removal of Saddam Hussein, with groups going into their sectarian or ethnic grouping, you're seeing a sectarian cleansing taking place. And here I just want to flash up in front of you, again, it's in the handout, the map of Baghdad, and this one is way too busy. But the point of it shows the movement, sectarian movement that's taking place in Baghdad, of Sunni moving west of the Tigris River and Shia moving east. And we're seeing within Iraq about 6,000 people relocating a month inside of Iraq, generally along ethnic or sectarian lines. This is not something that we support. This is not something we're pushing. But this happens to be a reality on the ground in Iraq today. What Joe has pretty well described what the proposal is. I want to quote the president of Iraq, President Talabani, as saying, when I met with him last week about this proposal, and he endorsed the proposal, he said that federalism is a way to devolve power and authority to the regions in Iraq in order to hold it together. Federalism isn't a way of splitting Iraq apart, it's a way of holding Iraq together. And you've got to recognize, too, Iraq in many respects has evolved less as a country and more as three groups held together by exterior forces. The countries around them do not want to see this country split up. We don't want to see it split up. They're bound together in many respects by those forces, and they want to see themselves be able to work, but they can't work if you have a strong central authority where you push most of your power and authority there. It will work if you devolve the power and authority, and my best example for why that would work is the Kurdish North, where federalism is already at work, where most of the power and authority has already devolved to the Kurds. It is already in the Iraqi constitution. I was there in January. Joe's probably been there several times. Matter of fact, I know Joe was there before Saddam Hussein was out of power. And what I saw in the Kurdish region of that country was investment, was general stability, were the Kurds running the region and allowing other groups to come in, even though it was still a Kurdish-run area, and the stability that we want to see for the rest of the country, the growth and development. This can work. It may be that the next step, if this has to happen sequentially, will be to give the Sunnis control of the West, where we've seen stability come in Anbar. It may be that you devolve power and authority, particularly to the Sunnis. And so it doesn't happen all at once, but it happens where a second region stabilizes, and that's in the Sunni region. Now, Joe and I would look differently at the military equation, possibly, maybe not, on down the road. I do think you're going to need to see U.S. troops there and in Iraq for some period of time.